Translation Purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Please therefore accept her, O chief of the brāhmaṇas, for I offer her with faith, and she is in every respect fit to be your wife and take charge of your household duties. Purport. The words gṛhamedhiṣu, karmasu mean in household duties. Another word is also used here, sarvātmanānurūpām. The purport is that a wife should not only be equal to her husband in age, character, and qualities, but must be helpful to him in his household duties. The household duty of a man is not to satisfy his sense gratification, but to remain with a wife and children at the same time attain advancement in spiritual life. One who does not do so is not a householder, but a gṛhamedhī. Two words are used in Sanskrit literature. One is gṛhastha and the other is gṛhamedhī. The difference between gṛhamedhī and gṛhastha is that gṛhastha is also an āśrama or spiritual order. But if one simply satisfies his senses as a householder, then he is a gṛhamedhī. For a gṛhamedhī, to accept a wife means to satisfy the senses. But for a gṛhastha, a qualified wife is an assistant in every respect for advancement in spiritual activities. It is the duty of the wife to take charge of household affairs and not to compete with the husband. A wife is meant to help, but she cannot help her husband unless he is completely equal to her in age, character, and quality. Umagyantamanandasya gyanana shalakaya chakshumritam yena tasmai shri gurave namaha Shri Chaitanya Manovistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Garamayam Dadati Swabadantikam Katayata Yasmin Duskarum Sukarum Bhavet Vishrite Vipriyatin Shri Chaitanya Namnanamitam Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadha Shiva Sri Gaura Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Ata Shri Krishna Nama, Ata Dvija, sorry, forgot the first line. Dhammasya, Varnashram Dhammasya, Samsari Haritoshanam. Pretty much what is the purpose of Varnashram is to please Krishna. Samsari Haritoshanam. So we hear about the household ashram, and it is not to satisfy our senses. It is for satisfying the senses of Krishna. That is the meaning of love. The meaning of lust is amyandriya priti vanchi paritarikam. Lust is just to satisfy the senses of the body. But love is Krishendriya, Ichidari Premanam. That prema is to satisfy the senses of Krishna. So this is the purpose of the gṛhastha ashram, to experience true love, not lust. The nature of lust, kamayesha krodesha rajaguna samudbhava mahashana mahapadma viradam ihavarinam. That is lust, it's when one is in contact with the mode of passion. And that lust turns into wrath, violence, either to oneself or to someone else. This is the all-devouring sinful enemy of this world. Everyone thinks the enemy is, some other country, some terrorist group. That's the enemy number one in the world. Some people think it's the government. Some people think it's the Illuminati. This is the enemy. But no, it is lust. This desire to try and satisfy one's senses. This is our enemy. So people go into a household or get married, especially men. They are thinking that, yes, I will get a wife and she will be my machine for sex life. So I can have unlimited sex life. This is my goal of being married. So, no, this is not the purpose of household life. This is gṛhamedhī life. So gṛhamedhī, a medhi is called like a pole. And in old days, they used to crush grains by having a pole, and then they tie a bull to it. And the bull would just walk around this pole. And that's how they'll crush the grains. So the medhi is the pole that's in the middle, and then the bull goes around. So the pole in a gṛhamedhī life is the genitals of the wife. And the man is just focusing everything on that. But a gṛhastha is focusing on Krishna and satisfying Krishna's senses. This is the purpose of the gṛhastha āśrama. If you need to know what's happening in this part of the Bhagavatam, we have Manu, who is trying to marry off his daughter, Devahuti. And Devahuti is very qualified. She's grown up in aristocratic family. Manu is one of the Mahajans. So her father is a great soul, so she's also become a great soul. And you would think that they need to also find someone who's like a prince, very rich, very capable. Usually that's the case when, a woman is looking for a husband. He needs to be rich, needs to have like some prestige, so I can be secure. But what are they looking for in a husband for Devahuti? He needs to be someone of great character. Where did Karma Muni stay? He was in the forest. He was not living in some palatial house. He didn't have a job. No, he was just there in the forest, doing austerity, trying to meditate on the Supreme Lord. So Karma Muni understood that he had to be honest. Sometimes that happens in a temple. A brahmachari does so many years in the temple, and he's trying to remain celibate and work hard, but then he has to be honest with himself and say, yes, it's time to move up an ashram. Moving from brahmachari ashram to grihastha ashram is moving up in an ashram. It's not a fall down. And so, in the same way, Karma Muni is thinking, yes, let me be honest. So what does he do? He does not just try to figure it out himself. He tries to go to superiors and get help. He doesn't like jump online and jump on Tinder or something like that. No, he asks for help, blessings from superiors, and especially the Supreme Lord. And the Lord comes as Prishnigabha Vishnu, riding on Garuda. And he grants him, yes, I will send you the right person who will become your bride. And Manu, he sees this Karma Muni, can understand that this person is of great character. He's done all the training as a brahmachari. Brahmachari life or education is meant for developing great character. Modern education, what does it develop? Animals. What do they teach young men? That you should just see every woman as a sense object. And you should just try and satisfy your senses to the max. Whatever you want, you should try and get. And what do they teach the young girls? That you should become a prostitute and become sexually desirable. And then you should kill children in the form of abortion. This is what's being taught in modern education. This is the fruit of modern education. But real education for men is that they should become sense-controlled, mind-controlled. And they should see every woman as mother except one's wife. This is real education. And for the ladies, the real value of a woman is chastity and faithfulness to one's father and to one's husband. this is where real empowerment comes from. We know that story of this chaste wife who had a husband who desired to the association of a prostitute. And he was like invalid and everything. And she couldn't pay for it. And she even helped this prostitute to try and get a favor to fulfill the desire of her husband. And obviously he was very sinful. And Yamaraj wanted to take him away. And she said, "No, you will not take him away. By my chastity, the sun will not set." Like this. And it didn't set, and it like ruined the whole universal structure just by a chastity. So this chastity in a woman is very empowering. God becomes very dear to you. You can achieve what you desire. You can get, you are protected, not by the Lord, but even other men respect that chastity, that shyness. So we can see the compatibility between Kadamba Muni and Devahuti. She was very chaste, very faithful, and a great devotee of the Lord. And Kadamba Muni was also a great devotee and someone of great character. So Prabhupada is saying here that the wife should be equal in age, character, and qualities. What I found interesting was the age part, because usually in Vedic culture, they would marry the girls before they hit puberty. As young as 8, 9, 10 years old. And the man would be already established economically, socially, so he would be much older, maybe 18, 19, 20 years old. So in the Vedic times, it was understood that you would take over your father's business. And from your young age as 10 years old, say he had a shop, this is in India, say he had like some shoe shop, you're already working the shop at like 8 or 9 years old. By the time you hit 18, you already know the whole business. See? You know the whole business by the time you're 18. Most young men, when they hit 18 in modern education, they don't even know anything about business, how to run a family, how to run a household, none of these things. But an 18-year-old in Vedic times, they knew everything. So then he was qualified to take on the responsibility of raising a family and looking after a wife. So why would they marry the girls before puberty? And what did that look like? So the parents would find a suitable man. They would engage, should be young, 7, 8 years old, and they would perform the marriage ceremony. It's not that the wife, so young, would go already to the house of the husband. It wouldn't happen right away. But the girl, she'll be pacified psychologically. She wouldn't need to think, I have to go and search out a husband. She'll be satisfied in her mind that, yes, I have a husband. There's no need for me to, flirt with other men or mix with other men. And then for the relationship to build, they would send that young wife to the husband's house for brief moments, maybe to serve food, to cook for him, to wash his clothes, just small things like this, and then go back home. And then they'll regularly do this, and it'll become more frequent. And then when she would hit puberty, then she'll move into the home of the husband. And then because of such a young age, she would be very fertile, and then very quickly she would have a child. To be a teenager and have a child was common. And why is that? Because obviously in modern times, women would have children in their 30s, maybe even 40s. Because what would happen is Varnashram system was that the man was expected to retire and leave home, either take vanaprastha or sannyas at the age of 50, go to the forest. But the wife would stay back with the grown-up sons. So if she had a child when she was 13, by the time she's 30, then her son is already like 20 years old. She's the she can be a grandma in her 30s or 40s. So you can see how it's a very scientific thing with the Vedic culture, and this woman is protected. She will not be exploited by other men in her younger years. And nowadays, the women are exploited several times before they hit the age of even 20. So we can see how this culture is protecting the women, and the women are the backbone of society. Even Arjuna was arguing his case. Why not to fight? Because the women will not be protected. And then, some unscrupulous men would come, and then they'll give birth to unwanted population, Varna Sankara. So we can see the science that's taking place here when it comes to marriage. How to live in a gṛhastha ashram. And we can see the example of Karma Muni and Devahuti, that they were so exalted that they had Kapila Muni, the Supreme Lord, as their own son. This is the most amazing thing, that one could have the Lord as their son. So this is the example given here of how to live gṛhastha life. But in Kali Yuga, we don't have such facility, obviously. It's getting worse and worse. Varnashram is topsy-turvy, no one's following, and we come to this movement of Krishna consciousness with so much misconceptions, no Vedic culture whatsoever, and somehow we want to live as a gṛhastha, or we want to live as a brahmachari, or a vanaprastha or sannyasi. How is it possible? So the only way it's possible is by the mercy of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, by chanting the holy name of Harinam Sankirtan. This is the yaga to be performed in every ashram. The brahmachari his yaga is to study, but he doesn't just study anything. He studies that is in relation to developing love for Krishna. The gṛhastha has to give in charity. And what charity does he give to? He gives charity to the temples. He gives his home open for programs so they can do Sankirtan Yaga in the home. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu started the Sankirtan movement when he was a gṛhastha. The greatest charity is to give the holy name. As a vanaprastha, the dharma of the vanaprastha, the duty is to perform penance. And we are performing such penance by following the four regulative principles. This is penance in Kali Yuga. And there's so much penance that comes with performing devotional service. When you go on books, you get rejected. When you do service and cook for the deities, you have to be on time. Everything has to be on time. Waking up early, I'll have to wake up the deities and do Mangalati. That is austerity. Austerity is pretty much just waking up early. To wake up early, you have to go to bed early. That's the hard part. And then as a sannyasi, it's all about being fearless and one's purification. So we can see that the holistic nature of Krishna consciousness that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu gave us, that one can actually execute all the duties of all ashrams perfectly just by connecting to Srila Prabhupada's movement. We sort of underestimate the morning program, right? Yeah, I've done this how many times for so many years, the same song, the same tune, But no, so much purification is taking place. If you were to count the items of devotional service that take place in the morning program, some temples like 52 items out of 64 items of devotional service. Maybe you can't touch the feet of the deity because you're not a brāhmana. And maybe you can't circumambulate the deities because, it's like a building and you have to go the whole block maybe. But close to 50 out of 64 items of devotional service are in just the morning program. Isn't that amazing? Prabhupada is okay, how am I going to sort out something where they can just get like streamlined purification every morning, every day. That's his genius. That's the genius of Prabhupada. He is light years ahead of everyone. You know, we kind of think, okay, the impersonalists with their style of kirtans or their motivational speaking, we have to sort of copy them. No, they're copying us. Yes, it's true. The yoga scene is, I'm sorry to say, it's outdated now. Just like when Prabhupada first came to the West in Dr. Mishra's ashram, that he was teaching yoga. Who was it? It's like some old 40-year-old divorcee ladies. And now that cycle's happened again with the yoga scene. Hardly, not many young people are coming through again. Young people nowadays, they're even sick of all this motivational speaking. You know? Just sort of a little bit of motor goodness and just make you feel good, but not to change your life. You know, just to have some fancy words that you can show off to someone else. No. They want the real thing. They want the truth, the reality, that you are not this body. Stop trying to give in to the mind and senses. You're being cheated by modern society. There is a God, you know, and you're supposed to surrender unto Him. This is the revolution here. Even though there's only a few of us, we're a part of that. This golden age is for sure, and we will be the pioneers of it. This movement, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, is so powerful. It is getting into every nook and corner, and somehow we're a part of it. Kadamba Maharaj, he wrote in his Diving Deep, I don't know if you have this book, I highly recommend it. And he said that even though we may have some shortcomings in the movement, but Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu sort of has infiltrated every single aspect of this materialistic society. It's going to break it down. He gives the example, just like if you want to construct a building. So you have to make sure there's no cracks in the cement or in the bricks. Because if there is a small crack in there, some water can get inside, and then when water just keeps building up inside these cracks, it can eventually break the whole building down. So in the same way, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's mercy has infiltrated this whole Kali Yuga in the same way, and it's like seeping through. And we have to keep putting that mercy of water into society. We may not see the results right away, but we can see something that has happened. For example, is like how many Russian devotees there is. There's so many of them. Actually, we travel around the world, you always run into a Russian devotee. Oh, Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Oh, Hare Ramananda, so nice to see you. I watch you on YouTube, you're doing your job so high in Karinam Sankirtana. We must do revolution. So, book distribution, yes. And so we can see that Prabhupada, when he first came to Russia, in the USSR, he only met one boy. Told him everything in 2 or 3 days. And then it manifests into this like huge thing, so much underground preaching in people's homes. And somehow they got one Bhagavad Gita, someone's able to translate it. And they would hand write it down. They would copy by hand a Bhagavad Gita by Prabhupada. And then they would like go out and distribute it. And they kind of had to do it secretly. They couldn't get caught by anyone because someone might tell on them. And at the same time, it could be a KGB spy. And they'll be on the street and they'll have it underneath. They go, hey, you, come here. Yeah, you, okay, I got this spiritual book from India. It has like revolution, and like just with so much conviction. And then like, okay, they'll get it. And that person would also hand copy it and give it to someone else. And now there's thousands. There's like something like 900 bhakti rickshaws in Russia. And they're growing more and more. They have such amazing preaching going on. It's revolutionary. Just from that one small thing that Prabhupada put in that one person. What to speak of what we're doing, like here in South Africa, it's amazing how much access you have to universities. You have no idea. You cannot do what you're doing in the universities like you're doing here. I think because you've like had it for so many years, you kind of think, yeah, it's always going to be there. No. They may just become secular. In Australia, in the West, many universities will not allow just like kirtan, programs, so much access to rooms. No way. You will not get this. What to speak of the students? They're so atheistic. Once they have a university education, they're so proud. They, like pretty much in university, they teach you that being someone who's religious is so naive. You have no idea about life. You just sold out to some religion. But here, they appreciate that you have knowledge about God, and they want to hear about it. It's so nice, actually. So this is our hope. Even though we don't have any Vedic qualifications whatsoever, so disqualified. Because of our connection to Srila Prabhupada and Lord Chaitanya Sankirtan, we can have the knowledge, we can have the qualification. We can have the peaceful and happy life, even though we don't have access to the true Vedic culture. Because we have the goal of Vedic culture, which is love for Krishna. To have knowledge and love for Krishna. So I'll stop here. And you can comment, ask question, add anything.
I like your pastime about the wife and the brāhmana. I can't remember where. I heard it about 3 times. But the one I heard was where he had leprosy. And he got onto the back of his wife. His wife was carrying him. And on the way, his foot touched like some sadhu, and the sadhu turned around and cursed him. It's like, how dare you touch me? You have this leprosy thing, like you must go far from whatever. And with this curse, he was cursed to die, Simon said. I don't know, is this true?
Yeah, that's the same one, yeah.
It's the same one, it's like different variants.
I mixed 2, so sorry. I didn't know the exact, I just wanted to say that chastity is, it's very powerful.
Do you know like the extent of that story? Because it's like at every step, everyone was like amazed by her conviction.
Yeah. So she was saying, by sundown he'll die. Yeah. So she'll say, okay, by my chastity the sun won't go down. Yeah.
And then I think Trimurti came to her like Brahma, Vishnu, Shiva were like, look, you can't do this.
Well, don't make sure you don't die.
I just find it very, very amazing because it's those pastimes and stories that attract people without a religious thing. Because people, in my experience, have been so scarred by religion, especially in Kali Yuga. So many people front as being religious and organizations front, but with Krishna consciousness, I find that it's very playful. Like I took that garland yesterday to a friend in Cork Bay and I gave it to him. He was hesitant to take it. He was like, "What is this?" It's like, "What does it look like?" It's like, I don't know, I don't accept things I don't know. And I was like, it's a garland of flowers, bro, what's gonna go wrong? And he accepted it, and then he took it off, and he put it in his room, and then I gave him an old pair of beads that someone gave me, and I had like a bead bag, and I was like, this is the most ancient form of meditation, chanting on a rosary. And that's what I got from you. You were like, just stick to the science, don't deviate in any way. And I felt like if one sticks to it, one can build a little bit of chastity of like almost being stubborn. So it's like the rightful stubborn nature. That's what I feel like if one had to define chastity, like you're adamant that you won't falter in any way. And I feel like that's what is that energy that you can give to someone. Otherwise someone looks at you and they goes, I don't trust you because you don't look like you are convicted. And everyone just passes it to everyone else. I don't know if you have something to say on that. Like everyone just likes to read a book and then go preach to the next person but hasn't practiced it. I feel like that's what Srila Prabhupada was trying to teach of like, read my books, practice them, and then when you go and you give the knowledge to someone else, they'll take it immediately.
Yeah. I mean, Krishna has his way. I mean, even people who were considered not qualified preached to us. I mean, I heard one devotee, he was told about Krishna by his heroin dealer. And then he went to the temple, you know. So sometimes Krishna acts through different people because we won't receive it from a devotee directly. Yeah. Like my ex-girlfriend told me to read the Bhagavad Gita, but she never came to devotee, she wasn't a, but I had to hear it from her.
So would you say that if one doesn't deserve Krishna, Krishna just goes to the next person? You know, because people say a lot, like these Hare Krishnas, this Hare Krishna movement, they're saying Krishna's name all the time. And sometimes they just don't have the conviction, and they're like, those Hare Krishnas, and the person will ask, where? No, they're there in Rondabhash. And then the person comes into Rondabhash just because he heard all of this. And it's amazing how he doesn't take the animosity from that person, he just takes the name Krishna. I found that quite amazing.
I mean, it's up to the individual. Everyone's individual. They can make their decision. Mataji?
So, Prabhu, with preaching, does it matter how we approach preaching, to be honest? Because I also was brought to ISKCON by a drunkard. Well, he still drinks, but he's reaching out. He wants me to help him now. And I often think about it, and I think about a lot of things, because when we came, we were a bunch, a big group from different art schools doing different art practices. And a whole lot of those people who were in the arts took Krishna conscious, because I mean, it's unlikely that we wouldn't. We just saw a carnival in our artistic interpretations, and we followed this carnival for 2 hours, and then some of us, because of the music and things like that, it made their impact. Though there were some who would visit temples secretly and not share, because they don't want to make everybody a Hare Krishna, because they're gonna stop doing activities that they benefit from everything. But somehow Krishna made it an arrangement that some of us get into it and read books, purpose book, and kind of like were impacted by this and wanted to be a part of it, and also wanted to share it in how it is. And then in those different ways, some small groups stayed. And in the beginning, when we all came, then they allowed us freedom, like to say, you know, we can do Hare Krishna mantra this way, we can do the Nishinga Pranam this way. And we did that, and it was preaching still at that time, even though it was a big debate that we can't do this, we can't do it. But the fact that we've reached like hundreds of people to hear the Maha Mantra when we were allowed to do it, and you don't know who you impact, because someone could have heard it then and respond 20 years later and things like that. But now there's just very strictness and lack of will, lack of support, lack of flexibility, just so stringent, and preaching is not there, young people are not there, nothing is there. But when you try something, all you meet is resistance, 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 and it kind of like makes you think a lot about how to serve Srila Prabhupada and how to approach it. So what I want to know is that if you feel like some of us, we come from townships, we come from communities, we know what the needs there are. You can't tell me from running a Devon Center how to preach in my own community when there's nobody from a community of locals in Devon. It means you missed something. And if I tell you, if you can at least hear me out and say, okay, go try, then I bring one person at least, then at least have that space to admit that we aren't approaching it how it works here. You know what I'm saying? So I really, 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 from the bottom of my heart, want to try. And it's not something that came now. I've had it since I've started. I just wasn't at the point where I'm matured and I understand it and everything. And now I'm at the point where I really don't care what they think, the leaders, the managers, whatnot, whatnot. I've had it in my heart. I've spoken to Tumakur Maharaj, and he really, really, really thinks it's a good idea and a good approach. And I'm not alone. For 5 other people who were done what ISKCON does to all of us. If I start with them, we put together, we come together, the 5 of us, we do what we can at one of our houses, and we keep inviting people, and we keep singing the mantra out there. You don't think that's what would please Prabhupada a little bit better? Because I don't think practicing Krishna consciousness is about coming to temples or living in temples. I think it's about us practicing it and sharing it with whoever we come across. And this approach that you are doing, like brahmacharis, unfortunately I'm your mataji, but that approach for me, it's the approach that will take this into every town and village. Because they're stuck up in temples and the funds of running temples and all of that takes away the preaching. It really takes. But when you say these things, you become that person. So I am that person. But I think that it's important also to learn some things, to be honest, when you're around these people and everything, because you will be that person. You will not see yourself doing it. But I really think we ought to be a little bit flexible now. People are ready. People want to hear. People are open-minded in some communities, but we're just not getting there because we're worried, we're fearful, we're all these things.
Thank you.
I had a similar mood to her, and I think I still do have that mood. I've just suppressed it for the sake of on-hearers and lookers. What my Gurudev told me was, like the constitutional position of every single living entity is Krishna consciousness. And if you have that in your heart and you know, all you have to do is just revive it in someone and just don't try too hard and I was told purity is the force. So practice your rounds, practice your reading, practice your Sanskrit, dancing, mridanga, kartal, so that when you go to someone, they're absolutely enamored by you. They don't know what it is, they're like, what is that? And then when you leave them wanting more, they follow you. And that I feel like is what Srila Prabhupada did. Like he's so attractive. He didn't try too hard, he just went there, sat down under a tree, started banging on a drum, playing Hare Krishna, and all the hippies were just like, what is this? He didn't tell them the big philosophy, he just said chant. And that to me is the original constitutional position of the soul. And immediately when they do that, they feel this like pinch in the heart, just how you felt when you first came to the temple. You heard the mantra and you felt all of that depression immediately go. I feel like it happens for everyone. And someone told me recently, just because other people do this, I don't think it can't happen to you, even with bad things. Everyone thinks I'm special. No, we're all spirit soul. We're just covered to different degrees. So I really like what Mataji is expressing, because it's this mood of being a soldier going forward despite of everyone's disbelief on the side. Go to this person and you can see they're suffering. You go out here right now and you see this like many people, even if they're going to work, they look disgusted with their choice. They look at the ground. If you just stop that person with one moment of, hey, how are you? I'm not okay. Okay, do you have a moment? And the person's like, what is it? And if you just say the right things at the right time, that person can completely start crying and actually check their life and be like, what am I doing? Why am I treating my wife like this? Why am I treating my son like this? And then can start to atone. I feel like the process of atonement is very difficult because it's embarrassing and no one knows how to do it. But if one comes to the devotees are so gentle that they actually allow that. They don't take any advantage from it. They just sort of hear you out. They're very good listeners, actually very good listeners, that they'll let you vent completely and get it out. And then when there's a chance for the devotee to speak, all he says is just chant this Maya mantra. Just carry on chanting it. So,
Thank you.
yeah.
Okay, thank you very much.
Hare Krishna.
Anyone for listening. We'll see you next time. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Srila Prabhupada ki.
Jai.
Yantarashram Bhagavatam ki jai.
Jai.